There are just 2 more rounds remaining of this Formula 1 season, but for Stoffel Vandoorne, there are now just 2 more rounds left of his Formula 1 career. As Stoffel Vandoorne has announced that he is leaving Formula 1 at the end of the season. But it's not all a case of a goodbye in full with regards to Vandoorne and BMW. As Stoffel Vandoorne has confirmed that he will be remaining with BMW, but he'll be taking part in the World Endurance Championship instead of driving for Formula 1. Stoffel Vandoorne said to Nico Rosberg about his intentions to leave the sport and move on in his career and have a go at endurance racing once more. And Nico Rosberg was fully supportive of Stoffel Vandoorne and his wishes to leave F1. However, where Nico Rosberg was going to be disappointed is if Stoffel Vandoorne left altogether. You see, Rosberg and Vandoorne have been getting along very well this season, and therefore when the conversations happened, that's when Nico Rosberg stepped in and basically said to Vandoorne, well, I've got an opportunity for you to actually stay with the team itself, but just in the Endurance Championship category instead. So that's what's happened. So Stoffel Vandoorne has thanked Nico Rosberg for keeping him within the BMW family, and likewise for Nico Rosberg, he has said that he's obviously accepted Stoffel Vandoorne's wishes and wishes him all the best in the World Endurance Championship, and he's allowed him obviously to go and compete in that, but as he wanted to keep him in the BMW family, things became a lot easier with regards to this conversation. But that does mean for next season, there is a seat available at BMW. Taking a look at the race news heading into this weekend, it is Porsche that continued their strong run of form throughout the final period of this season, with both Reece and Charles Leclerc really happy with the car and its overall balance. Once again, Ferrari are very competitive in race trim, where they're still lacking a little bit behind Porsche in terms of their qualifying simulation runs. As for Red Bull, things are a little bit of a flip. They seem to be a little bit off in race trim, but they are very fast in the qualifying simulation paces. So if they can get in front of a couple of drivers and rivals around them, they might be able to hold them up during the race. But it looks like there is some rain that is set to come during race day, as teams are now trying to work on the best possible setup to allow them to be quick in the drive for qualifying, but make sure they've got enough downforce to cope with the wet weather conditions. So let's get straight into it then. It's time for qualifying and the race for the US Grand Prix. Hey, how's it going, guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 journey for you guys here on the channel. We're here for the penultimate round of the season. It's the US Grand Prix, this time taking place at COTA, whereas in the past few seasons it has taken place at Miami. If you want to join today's video though, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. Obviously F1 25 is looming and we need to get this season done before it's too late. So as you can see then, we're going around the final corner here on our laps here, and we're currently in P5, which is not too bad actually after my first 2 runs to be in that position. But ultimately, we want to try and do a better job than where we have been before. So now as we go on to our final flying lap here, a little bit oversteery on the exit of the last corner, having some struggles with the rear grip around this circuit. But as we go in towards the first corner now, braking pretty early for the turn, but getting the car nailed in compared to my previous run, which gives us about a 0.2 of a second advantage as we power now through these S sections, an area of the track where I seem to be very comfortable and very quick compared to my rivals. But we go a little bit wide through this corner, and that is going to just unsettle us going into the next corner, as I lost all my flow going through there, and a 0.2 of a second advantage now becomes a 0.5 second deficit. So we've just lost 0.7 going through those complex of corners through basically my own fault of just not getting the rhythm absolutely spot on. And honestly, we've already ruined the lap now, so it's just going to be one of those. We're down into P9 as things stand, and now we go through in towards the hairpin, and it's all about just basically trying. But crucially, despite being 0.5 second down, we obviously lost a lot of time going through the hairpin on my previous banker lap, because we're now all of a sudden nearly close to matching my previous lap time here. So overall, we might actually, despite the fact that we've already dropped 0.7 in this lap, pull back a little bit of time, and we're now fractionally up on our previous best lap time. Through the sector last corner we go. That's nice and clean and tidy. One more turn left to go. A little bit early on the turn, then a little bit wide on the exit, but we do find a minor improvement. It's a contrast in conditions from what we had in qualifying, but here is what things are going to look like for what's going to be a wet race here at COTA. Reece is on pole position for Porsche yet again, with Sebastian Vettel sitting alongside him on the front row of the grid. Just 11/100ths of a second separated them at the end. Charles Leclerc is third for Porsche, just half a tenth behind his teammate Reese, while Sam qualifies fourth for Ferrari, 1.5 tenths off the pace. Verstappen is fifth for Audi, ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who outqualifies George Russell, 2.5 tenths off of pole, with Lando Norris starting 7th. Kimi Antonelli is the best placed Mercedes driver, 3 tenths off the race pole position in the end, with Carlos Sainz sitting in 9th for Audi. George Russell qualified in P10 for McLaren ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and then it's ourselves starting in P12 for Aston Martin. Sergio Perez is 13th for Red Bull, while Oscar Piastri, our teammate, is 14th, just a 10th separating the pair of us. Liam Lawson is 15th for Jaguar ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and then Alex Albon. Ricciardo in a bit of a Jaguar sandwich there, with the two BMWs of Behrman and Vandoorne next up, and then it's Pierre Gasly that rounds off the grid for the US Grand Prix. Right, well, we've certainly got our work cut out going into this US Grand Prix, and it's going to get even more interesting because it's going to be a wet race, then it's also going to dry up near towards the end. So here we go then. It's time for us to try and recover from what's been a disastrous weekend. The lights are off and the race is on. It's a decent-ish start from us. We get alongside Lewis Hamilton going up in towards the first corner, and I think that's going to be George Russell that's in the McLaren there that will try and find a way through as well. Down into the first corner. Can we also try and find a way past Kimi Antonelli in the second Mercedes car and go up into P10? No, not quite. In fact, we're actually already in P10. Antonelli is in P9 as we now make our way through the S section. This is where the AIs will already be up to speed. They'll know exactly what the track conditions are like. As for me, I've got absolutely no idea. So we just need to settle ourselves in. And as you can see, going a little bit wide. And that's going to give an impetus there for George Russell to try and come back at us. But Russell there, unfortunately, will not be able to make that position stick, sliding around as we try and build some confidence and some temperature in these wet weather tyres. And now down in towards the hairpin we go. Can we make a move on Antonelli? Not quite. And now we can just try and set him up a little bit, and, well, set him up more like make a little bit of contact with the rear there of Kimi Antonelli to try and set up a run now down the back straight here, using the battery now to our advantage. We're gaining on Kimi Antonelli in the straight line, still gaining a little bit. Now it's just sort of plateaued out a bit, but we will go for it down the inside on Kimi Antonelli, making the move stick, gentle under braking, and Antonelli has been dispatched with, and we're up into 9th place now as the two Porsche drivers lead 1 and 2 in this Grand Prix. And now for us, it's a case again of continuing, the back end sliding there as we try to make our way through, continue to settle down, and the unhappy rear end that we've had throughout the course of this weekend isn't going to do us any favours as it continues to step out, just can't get the throttle down at all versus my rivals who are just blasting off into the distance ahead. Second to last corner is alright, but again the back end is continuing to slide, and into the final corner we go. It's still just desperately trying to slide on me. Reese then is your race leader. We are currently in 9th place as things stand, and that gap in the championship, it's only 5 points between myself and Reese, so things are not looking great for myself. But let's have a look at the start though. So Reese gets a very nice getaway from pole position, and he's through off into the distance now. As we look further back though, you can see here that it's actually Charles Leclerc now that goes through. It's Vettel on the front row that's had a really poor start compared to his rivals around him. This is on board with Charles Leclerc. It's a beautiful start from Charles Leclerc. He's actually got a slightly better launch than what Reese got going in towards turn 1, but Reese is ahead. Leclerc opts not to go down the inside of Reese, probably playing a little bit of team games here, considering of course Reese is in the championship fight, Charles Leclerc isn't, and that allows Reese to just stay on through while Charles can power on his way. And then this is on board with Carlos Sainz in his start then. It's actually again a very nice start from him. So he goes to the outside line here. He's got Antonelli and also Sam there in the, Lando Norris up ahead of him. So he's past Antonelli, tries to go around the outside here of Lando Norris, holds it around the outside. Then he has the inside line for turn 2. That's great bravery there from Carlos Sainz, and it's actually worked out really well for him, but it's not going to work out very well though for Mr. Lando Norris in the Ferrari, because into turn 1 we go. That is Lando Norris's car coming to a halt. Engine has failed, and it's a disaster for him in this race, but it's great news for me because right now I am struggling like mad in these conditions, and as you can see, there I am, and there's the lot in front here. This is on board here with Bottas, who's having a go here at Verstappen. Down the inside into the hairpin goes Bottas. Can he make the move stick? Verstappen will have the inside line, though, to get him back again on the next run. And Verstappen will keep holding it in there. So is Valtteri, actually. They'll have to fight this one out a little bit longer before one of them can confirm that they're in front of the other. And it's going to go in the way of Max Verstappen. He gets a better exit off the corner, and he can fly on through into the triple right-hander, and it job done for him. As for me, though, lap 6 of the Grand Prix, I decided that now is the right time to come into the pits as we go very wide. Antonelli's just, well, he actually just mugs me off there, going in towards the final few corners. But my engineer came onto the radio and stated that he thinks that the track is now good enough for the intermediate tyres, and he felt like we were on the wrong compound. So with that being said, we're going to make a bold move here, only on lap 6 of the Grand Prix, to come off these wet tyres and go on to the intermediates and try and run as long as we possibly can. And hopefully, this can give us a massive undercut versus our rivals, because I've been struggling in the wet weather, and it's really not been helping me. All the traction zones, I've got the back end stepping at me. There's Perez, who actually pitted the lap earlier than all of us, and all of a sudden, he's now right in the mix. In fact, he's just overtaken Lewis Hamilton there. So that kind of just shows you where the pace is on the intermediates. Here we are now catching up to the back of the Jaguar car here. I think this is Liam Lawson that we've caught up to. He's on the wet tyres. We're on the intermediate tyres. We've just set a purple first sector. So the track conditions are definitely intermediate now. But it's a case of who's going to hold on to their intermediates and who's going to hold on to their wets for a little bit longer. So now as we go down the inside here of Lawson, I believe this is now, and we get the job done on Liam, and I believe it is, we're now ahead of him, and that gives us an extra space between myself and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, who's on those intermediate tyres. Now, lap 10 of the Grand Prix, you can see that we've had a fastest lap from Sebastian Vettel in this race. We're going to eclipse that and go even faster. But there's a little bit of a fight going on here because a couple of drivers are staying out on the wets and some are staying out on the intermediate. So a split strategy here in the wet. I don't think you'd ever be hearing that anytime soon. But Bottas here is going to pass Daniel Ricciardo. He gets that job done. Verstappen now is trying to find a way, is trying to find a way past Daniel Ricciardo. We'll also try and find a way if we possibly can. And that's what we'll try and do. And that's what we will do in the S section. Really, really composed there to get that one done and sneaking up the inside there of Carlos Sainz. He didn't see that one coming when we were rehearsing it, but we got the job done on the Audi man, and now we can try and focus on the catching and passing Daniel Ricciardo. So shall we go for it into the hairpin before the back straight? Yes, we will, because we can go down the inside on Ricciardo. We can get a better run off the exit of the corner on our intermediate compound tyres, and we won't really be under threat. But who is under threat is unfortunately the other Jaguar driver, because Bottas now is going for a run here down the straight, and here he goes now around the outside of Alex Albon, and it's going to be a very tricky one here to get past Alex Albon, but Bottas does pass Alex Albon, and now we're going to go for it down the inside on Albon into the next complex of corners, making wasting no time, should I say, in passing all of these drivers and giving us a chance to keep going at the drivers in front of us, because we're not that quick in race trim, to be honest. Now we just need to be careful, and also be careful not to break our own front wing there. But we've got some great pace now versus Valtteri Bottas. Down the back straight we go. This is going to be quite a simple move, you'd hope, as we got a good straight line speed. We're catching Bottas, gaining on him, gaining as much as we can now, sticking in the slipstream of Valtteri Bottas. He's going to go and cover the inside line, and that's going to make us to go around the outside, but I'm fine with that. Bottas tries to force us wide, does a good job actually in defending the position, but we can keep our nose in there and dive it down the inside on Bottas. Job done on the McLaren driver. That's a key move in this Grand Prix. We're up into 9th place now in this Grand Prix, but what's interesting on lap 13 here is firstly, Sam, once again, like he's been doing the past few rounds, causing some problems for Porsche here, as he tries to go down the inside on Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc holds him off, as Reese now scampering away. So Sam now is, Leclerc is doing the work to keep Reese ahead. That is the key thing in this Grand Prix. But what I was trying to say is that all those drivers you saw just 2 laps ago in lap 13, they were on the wet tyres still. They've only just, speaking of those 2 drivers, here comes Charles Leclerc now. Here comes us to switch back him into turn 1. They've only just pitted to go onto the intermediate compound tyres. That is going to be critical, because lap 18 of the Grand Prix now, things are about to become very tricky for us as we go now down in towards the final corner to start the next lap. My tyres are now 12 laps old, and in fact, they're not only 12 laps old, they're completely gone, and now we're under huge pressure because everybody else has got, well, effectively 10, 11 laps younger intermediate tyres on versus us. So we now have to try and do what we just did there to Charles Leclerc and heavily defend for our lives, because right now we're in a bit of a predicament here because Reese is the man that leads this Grand Prix. He is the one that is now ahead, and that's a bad problem for me to have because ultimately I needed to hope, I was wishing that I would rejoin in front of Reese and I could blast onwards clear. I missed out by 1.7 seconds. There is Reese going down the back straight. He's flying clear now, and ultimately he set his sights on just abandoning everyone. So now I'm in a problem whereby I can no longer win this Grand Prix unless Reese DNFs. So I've got to defend against Charles Leclerc because Charles Leclerc will do everything he can to regain second place in this Grand Prix and take more points away from me in the championship. Remember, as we try and defend here from Charles Leclerc, as we look on board with Reese there, we do defend the position, but we are currently 5 points clear of Reese in the Drivers' Championship. As things stand, Reese is going to go into the final race in Brazil 2 points clear in the championship and leave us dropping down into second in the championship. So we really need to try and defend these positions. But Sam now has passed Charles Leclerc and he wants to try and overtake us and get second place in this Grand Prix. And Sam there doesn't make the move stick. But of course, as well for Sam, he's not in the Drivers' Championship battle. So for him, he's got nothing to lose. He can go for this. As for me though, I've got to be really careful to make sure that I not only defend my position, but not cost myself an opportunity at a hole of points here. If I have any damage at all, then I've got Sam, Leclerc, I think I've got Vettel, I've got multiple cars here, all behind that could cost me some time. As Sam now outbrakes, going down the outside, in towards the hairpin. It's going to be side by side, but look at the difference in the traction on the rear tyres versus myself on my tyres that went on lap 6 versus Sam's tyres that went on lap 16 of the Grand Prix. It's a stark contrast, and it's one that I'm having to take immediate action for. Lap 21 of the Grand Prix, it's time for big gamble number 2. My Inters are done for. I cannot go on them any longer, but ultimately, I can't afford to go onto another set of intermediates. So, we're taking the risk and we're going onto the slick tyres already in this race. I do feel like the track is drying out enough and it stopped raining and that there was not any standing water that this strategy will work. But ultimately, again, if it doesn't work and it's actually too wet for the slick tyres, I'm going to be in a world of pain and have pretty much cost myself this race and ultimately probably the championship as well. So a lot rides on this. Lap 23 of the Grand Prix, I didn't get the timing right for my stint. We're now P5 in this Grand Prix. Verstappen is ahead. Charles Leclerc and also Sam are in front of me. So we were about a lap or two early onto the slick tyres. But ultimately, we need to now just refight, refocus and go again. Everyone's gone for hards. We're gone for mediums. We're going down the inside of Max Verstappen. And that's us up into 4th place in this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is the next man up the road in P3. So here is the running order. Reese is still your race leader for Porsche. Sam is second for Ferrari. You can see him on the mini-map ahead. Charles Leclerc is third, the driver right in front of us, and we're now in 4th, and we've just overtaken Max Verstappen. But now, the track is going to be ramping up. The grip is going to keep on coming, hence why my cornering is a complete disaster, because I just can't remember how to drive on a track that has grip. But here we go then. We've got the DRS on this start-finish straight versus Charles Leclerc. Go to the inside line, dive it down the inside on Charles Leclerc. Move is done on Charles Leclerc, and back into the podium places we go in this US Grand Prix. And the crucial thing is now, do we have enough pace on these medium compound tyres to get after the Ferrari of Sam? Because he is on the hard compound tyres, whereas we're going for the medium compound tyres. So let's see if we can try and catch him in this Grand Prix, or whether we're going to be left for dust by everybody else. Back end sliding on the exit there. You can see that we've got so much understeer and oversteer. We're just having to fight really hard with this car to make it work, because ultimately it's not as fast as what I'm trying to make it to be. It's not a podium place car. We're just pushing like mad and hoping to do the best. And obviously we can defend a lot more aggressively than everybody else. And this is exactly what we need to do, because here comes Charles Leclerc to come back at us with the DRS down in towards the hairpin. Position though has been defended with obviously so many other drivers that are all looking to try and re-pass us full position. There is so many cars that I've got to be careful now. Lap 25 of the Grand Prix to come on to lap 26 now of this race, and we're back at it again with Charles Leclerc in the DRS. We're going to go to the inside line to defend. Leclerc goes to the outside line to attack, down in towards turn 1. We'll make the move on Charles Leclerc and stay in front of him for the time being, but it's getting ever close now in this race, and we now know that as things stand, we're going to be going into the final round of the Grand Prix 5 points back in the championship versus Reese. So this time around, this is becoming even more critical, because there is P4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, possibly even P10. So the remainder of the drivers in the points are all behind us. So if anything goes wrong, we can go from a podium to actually no points whatsoever. But we defend again from Charles Leclerc on lap 26, refusing to give him any room to make a pass on us in this race. And it's all about defending, and we're making sure now, changing strategies a little bit, allowing him to be right behind me, going in towards this hairpin, and then using the ERS. We're putting no ERS on throughout the whole of the first sector to give me a chance to just use it down this straight. But Leclerc breezes past us, but we'll send it on the brakes, going in towards the hairpin, keeping it just about in the confines of the circuit. Leclerc, though, still in front, but we'll send it down the inside on Charles Leclerc and making a move stick there. Desperation defending versus some over-aggressive attacking to keep ourselves in the position of P3 in this race. And now Verstappen has got a run on Charles Leclerc on the last lap of the Grand Prix. There we are, in towards the hairpin of turn 1. Verstappen, though, round the outside of Charles Leclerc. Will he make the move stick? Yes, he will. Max Verstappen is up into 4th place in this Grand Prix, but that means that on the final hairpin of the final lap of the final straight, probably, we've now got work to do, because Verstappen is going to go for it this time around. So we're going to defend the position, cover the inside line. Here comes Verstappen. DRS is enabled for the Audi driver. We've got nothing in return. He's in front of us, but we'll dive it down the inside again on Verstappen, making it stick. A little bit of contact between myself and Max, but here we are, watching Reese, who's come ahead onto the final corner on the last lap. He's a hat-trick of wins for Reese. He wins the US Grand Prix. Sam is going to cross the line very shortly to get 2nd place in this Grand Prix. But for us, though, from starting down in P18, P13 I think it wasn't that far down, we're going to fight hard in this Grand Prix with some bold strategy calls, some heavy defending, and some aggressive fighting to clinch a podium in the US Grand Prix. And that is a massive relief, because ultimately I was not quick around this track in the slightest, and I don't really know why, to be honest. I love this track, and I just don't really understand where my lack of pace is. I was much quicker than the AIs in the first sector, but then the lap time just fell away throughout the rest of the lap, so something to analyse moving forwards. But for Reese, though, this man is on pure form now. Like, he's unstoppable. That's a hat-trick now for Reese. That's his 3rd race win in a row for Porsche, and he's done it again here at the US. So far, our America's tour, these final few races, Canada, Vegas, and now here in COTA, Reese has hit the ground running, and he's ready to go and claim a 3rd World Drivers' Championship. Sam is 2nd for Ferrari. It's a great race for him. Ultimately, the gap of 15.1 seconds is rather flattering for Reese, mostly because the stint where I was on the intermediate tyres and I was defending against Charles Leclerc initially and then Sam, the gap between me and Reese was genuinely like 1.8, 1.9 seconds when Reese came out of the pits. That gap accelerated all the way up to 22 seconds between lap 16 or 17 to lap 21 when I pitted for a set of dry tyres. I completely killed anyone's opportunity to actually keep, to attack Reese. But ultimately, in this circumstance, there's no point in me letting Leclerc, Sam, Verstappen and stuff through to try and chase after Reese. Because if they don't pass Reese, then it's even worse for me. So I have to keep track position and just damage limitation, and that's what we did today. We didn't have a great qualifying, we messed it up, we should have been higher up the grid, we were not quick enough in the wet conditions, we struggled especially in the full wets in Sector 3. I pitted early for the inters, that was the right call. It was just the fact of the how I genuinely don't know how everybody else was able to stay out on full wets and keep up great pace. That's what shocked me the most, but ultimately we did the strategy that I think was the best because it kept us in podium contention, basically. Max Verstappen, though, finishes in 4th for Audi ahead of Charles Leclerc for Porsche. He'll be disappointed with that after things get planned out. Vettel down in P6 in the end, with Kimi Antonelli finishing in 7th. George Russell was Piastri, my teammate, was P8. George Russell finishes in P9 for McLaren ahead of Carlos Sainz, who finishes in P10 for Audi. And this is what I'm talking about. Myself in P3 down to Carlos Sainz was 3.1 seconds between us. And that just shows that if something went wrong, the lockup, damage on the front wing, spin, contact, whatever, we would have been pretty much out of the points. So it was a very, very risky one, but one that we did indeed take. So looking at the second half of the table now, and as you can see, Valtteri Bottas is the man that finishes in P11, 24 seconds off the race win, with Daniel Ricciardo finishing in P12 for Renault. Lewis Hamilton, a disappointing P13 for Mercedes, with Ollie Behrman in P14, Alex Albon in a BMW sandwich in P15, with Vandoorne in 16th. Perez, disappointing race for him in 17th. Remember, he actually came in at the same time as me for the first stop to go on to the Inters. In fact, he was a lap earlier than me and Hamilton. So what proved there is that Perez and Hamilton, who both pitted for the intermediates at the same time as me, then also pitted for another set of Inters before going to the dries, and it didn't work for them. Ultimately, it just shows that the way that I went about my race was slow but effective because I had the track position to do it. Liam Lawson is 18th for Jaguar ahead of Pierre Gasly, who finishes in 19th for Renault. And then Lando Norris was the only driver throughout the course of the race. The DNF, we obviously saw that on lap 4. So disappointment for Ferrari. Taking a look now at the Drivers' Championship, and as I said, now it is flipped on its head. Reese is your new Drivers' Championship leader for Porsche with one more race to go. It is me versus Reese for the championship, but rather than it being a 5-point lead for me, Reese will take a 5-point lead going into the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's basically just flipped around. So it's now or never for either myself to win a championship with Aston Martin or for Reese to do what he's basically fought to do, which is to join this Porsche team and start it from the ground and bring it to the top. They've done it in the constructors, but can they do it in the drivers? Looking at the rest of the championship though, Sam has moved himself up to 3rd in the championship for Ferrari, ahead of George Russell now, as he moves on to 160 points, with Russell on 153. Charles Leclerc is also in the mix in that championship battle as well to finish in P3. He's on 148 points, only 12 points behind Sam in the championship. Carlos Sainz for Audi is on 131 points. He's got an 11-point gap over Lando Norris, and he's 17 points behind Charles Leclerc. So at the moment, Sainz seems to be settling himself for 6th place. Lando Norris, as I said, was 7th. Max Verstappen moves to 8th in the championship on 111 points, with Sebastian Vettel breaking the 100-point barrier in P9 for Red Bull, with Valtteri Bottas in P10 for McLaren on 92 points. The next event is the F1 Journey Brazilian Grand Prix. And then having a look at the Constructors' Championship, Porsche have already wrapped up the Constructors. They're on 393 points, but it's Aston Martin who is 2nd in the championship. We're still there with 279 points. We've got an 11-point gap over Ferrari. They're on 268 points, with Audi sitting on 264 points. So there's 15 points between Aston Martin, Ferrari and Audi. As for McLaren, their end to the season has been pretty poor, and they've now fallen away. They're on 245 points in the championship. Mathematically, they can still finish 2nd in the championship, but it's going to take a lot to make that happen. So unfortunately for McLaren, with them being 19 points away from Audi, it's looking like it's now a 3-way fight for 2nd in the championship, rather than what it's been for the majority of the season, which is a 4-way fight. there's still a battle going on between Red Bull and Mercedes. Red Bull are on 124 points, Mercedes sit on 116 points in the championship, so those two teams will be battling it out for P6 in the championship. Renault are on 35 points and they sit clear of Jaguar, who are on 18 points. And then for BMW, they've now got one more opportunity to try and score some points in this season. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very disappointing, pointless season, and one that I think Nico Rosberg and the team will have to take into consideration moving into the next one. But that is it for this race. Let's go to the post-race notebook now and see what the teams and drivers had to say after this event. Taking a look at the post-race notebook after the US Grand Prix, well, Reese has secured his third race win in a row. He won the Canadian Grand Prix, he won last time out in Vegas, and he's taken yet another race victory here in the USA to give himself the championship lead going into the final race of the season. It was a 5-point lead that Tom had coming into the US Grand Prix. That's now flipped to a 5-point lead in Reese's favour going into the final round of the season. Starting things off with Reese, he has gone out and said in his press conference that this is the best that he's ever driven in his career. Reese has admitted that the Porsche car is definitely the best car on the grid at the moment, but he says that the way that he's been driving has given him the opportunity to not only stay in front of the rest of the field, but keep himself in contention when needed, and he's ultimately putting the weekends together very, very consistently. Tom has gone ahead and agreed with what Reese said after he was asked about it in his press conference, stating that this is the best that he has seen Reese drive in his career, and not only is he happy to see him driving at its best, he says it's also frustrating that he's doing it against him rather than somebody else in the championship, as a little bit of a laugh. But finally, Tom has said that he's going to need all of his luck and skill if he is going to win the World Championship at Interlagos. The gap is only 5 points, but as things stand, the form and the pace is with Porsche and with Reese. But we've got one more race to go. Who is going to win the World Drivers' Championship? Will we win it with Aston Martin, or will Reese take the crown for Porsche? You'll have to stay tuned for the final round of the F1 Journey season number 12 coming very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, drop it a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care all. Peace.